The role of work and income is a trend we cannot avoid to talk about at this time. The world of work is at the edge of unknown. Automatization, robotization, artificial intelligence, and digital platforms are all changing the world of work as we know it. And it's actually really difficult to say what this means. What this means from the point of view of work, what this means from the point of view of income in the future. And sometimes when the future is quite unknown, it's easier to look back. And if we look at the 19th century, there was this phenomena that was called Engels' pause. Engels' pause meant that income growth stagnated actually for 50 years, even as if productivity grew hugely during the Industrial Revolution. So at the time, for someone who lived in those times, it seemed maybe that the Industrial Revolution wasn't bringing so much good. It wasn't actually growing their income for 50 years. That's a long time. So if we come back today and if we compare these two periods, I think it's a good thing to ask, is it possible that today's generation could be facing a similar pause when we are living through a technological revolution at the moment? So very often when we are looking at the future, it's actually likely that we know as little about the future as someone who was living through the 19th century. But even if it's difficult to predict how the world of work will be in the future, I think it's important to use our imagination. If we look at, for example, 2040, how would your good working day look like? Where would you ask a robot to help you? Where would you use artificial intelligence if you could? Where are humans really good at? What would be a good life where work would be part of it and technology would be helping us out? So we've made two scenarios about the future of work. The first scenario is that it's possible that work changes, but there is plenty of work and payment for all. The other, maybe a bit less optimistic scenario is that only few people have work and even fewer benefit from its result. But what the future will be, no one has really answers at the moment. But even if no one has answers, it's really important that we think about few things and we actually try to shape our future ourselves. We have few suggestions for this. First, I think we should ease the struggles of those who are caught in the middle of work's paradigm shift. So those who seem not to catch up with the world of new work. We should be thinking how to ease the pain of those people. Also, we should recognize that the future income distribution is a political hot topic that we should be already talking about. The income distribution debate is a bit different if we look at the first scenario, where we think that work changes, but there is plenty of it for all. It doesn't mean that we don't have to do anything. We actually need to think about how we learn throughout our lives, to learn new things, to play with new technology in order to keep up with this new world of work, even if there is plenty of work for all of us. But then, if the future is less optimistic, if only few people have work and even fewer benefit from its results, so the world where maybe robots and algorithms can replace human beings. So where does our income come in that world? This is a really important debate, and I'm really proud that Finland has been, for example, trialing universal basic income here, which very often is mentioned as one of the possible solutions in a world like I mentioned. But it would be important to have these debates and challenge our decision makers to give their answers for those debates. Also, I think we should be thinking, where are we heading in our societies in the long term? What kind of societies are we building up? What kind of role is work playing in our societies? And are we trying to build up more equal society or more divided societies? We have to realize that also in the future, lifelong learning needs to be something that we actually take for granted, that is something that we do very naturally throughout our lives. If in the future even more and more people live close to 100 years, and at the same time technology is changing really quickly, it's not enough that we educate ourselves 21st years of our lives, and after that we assume that it's enough. I think we need to come up with new ways of learning easily and naturally, even when we are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80. So I think lifelong learning will become something that we need to think about in our societies. And we have to remember that work can be also known and unknown in the future. There are a lot of professions that might not change so much, and then there are completely new ones that will be born. Representative democracy fatigue. We've been witnessing in the Western countries a long decline of voting turnouts. We've been also witnessing long decrease in the participation for political parties. In Finland at the moment, only 6% of population participate to any party politics. In the European level, the same number is 3. So in order to work, democracy needs to be strengthened, and we need to be thinking how to include more people into the world of democracy. And we can say that there has been a lot of changes in democracy recently. Are we facing a crisis of democracy? It's difficult to say. However, we can see that there are different phenomena that affect democracy at the moment. First of all, everything is connected. When you think about democracy, it's not only about the voting, it's not only about the political parties. It's a lot also about well-being, institutions, trust in the society, economy, jobs. So if you see something happening in these areas also, very often it's affecting the world of democracy, the procedures of democracy as well. So when we are looking at how to improve democracy, we actually have to look at the whole society. How will we improve, for example, well-being? That is a big factor contributing towards participation. What we know out of research at the moment, it seems that those who are well off, doing quite well in the society, they also participate in the elections, they go voting, they get their message through. And we also know that those who are not so well off don't get their message through, they don't go to vote, they don't candidate in the elections. So the more you have people who are less well off, the smaller is the representation in the democracies as well. So it is actually a big challenge, the question about differences in our societies. And we need to look at it as a whole. Also, the rapid development of technology and globalization have had major impacts in the world of democracy. When we look at technological developments, we see that internet has changed a lot about the culture of democracy. It has changed the way people participate, how can they get their voice heard, how they can put together movements. It has created a lot of transparency, completely new world in many sense. However, at the moment, we don't yet see many effects taking or showing in the formal procedures of democracy. How this will change, we don't know yet, but for sure, technology is changing some aspects of democracy. Also, globalization has meant that there are more and more things that nation states cannot decide by themselves. In the future, we also have to think about how we organize global decision-making when there are more and more people on the planet and there are some issues that touch the whole humankind. So, if we look at the scenarios of democracy, it is possible that in the future, transparency, inclusion, innovation may flourish. We have, for the first time, developed real tools for that. As people have access for information, they can get their message heard and they can connect with each other throughout the whole world. But at the same time, we see this trend that the power concentrates in the hands of few, and we see a lot of exclusion and disruption. Where is democracy going? Which is the world we see in the future? We don't know yet. However, if we appreciate democracy, I think there are a few things that we should really pay attention to. First of all, democracies everywhere struggle with inequality and the questions of trust. So we should be asking, what can we do? What can we do to tackle these questions? How can we tackle inequality? Because it's such an important ingredient of functioning democracy. Also, we have to look seriously about global decision making in the future. In the future, we must think of some fundamental resources together. This means clean air, clean water, right to life and prosperity in the whole planet. So what kind of role is democracy playing in that? Also, in the world where we have some really serious global issues that we need to tackle together, I think we need to ask also how to strengthen local democracies. So I think we should be really paying attention for all the local initiatives and improvements that we see taking place everywhere at the moment. Also in the future, I think democracies should be paying attention for technology. At the moment, the world of technology and the world of democracy and participation, they might be actually a bit divided. Those people who are interested in technology are not maybe that interested in the society, and those who are involved with politics and society might not be fundamentally interested in technologies. But as technology is defining more and more the world we are living in, I think it's really, really important that people from those areas really cross the lines. Those who understand technology come to the help of society, and those who understand society jump to the world of technology. The economy at crossroads. A long period of stagnation is finally coming to an end. However, there are some factors that still haven't changed during this long period of stagnation, even if we are seeing glimpses of light at the moment. What hasn't really changed in Western countries, and especially here in Finland, is that we have a huge aging population. Another thing that has become actually even more urgent is the question about the overuse of natural resources and emissions in global scale. So we have to be asking the question of what kind of growth are we seeking and what kind of well-being are we building up? We have built 4 scenarios regarding the future of growth, and the four scenarios look like the following. The first one is that it is possible that we will not find a way out of this stagnation, and the old ways of doing things persist in the societies, and we slowly just wither away. A bit provocatively, we'd like to say that in Finland we are maybe in this scenario at the moment. We haven't really taken into account the factors I just mentioned about the aging population and also the overuse of natural resources. The next scenario is that we seek growth by using all the means available, and we end up ruining our planet eventually, even if the economy will grow in this scenario. So this means that we aim for growth, especially fossil fuel promoted growth. And this is maybe the scenario that we're seeing taking place in the United States at the moment. But in the long term, it prevents well-being if we go down this road. The next scenario is that well-being would become the most important goal for public policies, and at the same time, even if the economy wouldn't grow, the well-being would grow and the natural world would revive. This is maybe a bit utopian scenario, but if we look at some countries, for example Japan, they are facing a situation where their economy hasn't been really growing for 25 years. However, people in Japan, they do fairly well. and they've been adapting new technologies, and they've been kind of they've been doing quite well despite the long period of stagnation. So even if it has its own problems, I think it's quite important to think about this question. Even in the period of long stagnation economically, would there still be ways that we could increase our well-being during this kind of time? The last scenario that we have created is that we managed to decouple economic growth from emissions and overuse of natural resources, and at the same time the well-being would grow and the economy would also grow. So we are speaking about the scenario of decoupling. This is the scenario that we at Sitra believe that we should be heading to. So the world where we grow our economy, but we do it in a clean way, and also a scenario where well-being is the number one of our societal politics. And at the same time, we should seek for a greater ecological sustainability of the planet. So, but where are we heading? That's a tricky question. However, we think that now it would be really, really important that we would learn how to explore the question of progress, actually, because in these scenarios, the growth of the economy doesn't really say much about the progress of the society. If we can only measure how the economy is growing, but we don't know how to measure the well-being of our citizens, or we don't know how to measure our ecological sustainability, we don't know much about the progress. So we need to develop some kind of indexes and measures in order to know, are we a progress society or not? I think we need to continue to take action to get the circular economy growing, and that's something that we've been doing at Sitra a lot. Also in the future, we should understand that the economy is actually only a way to define what we value in our societies, and the economy is following what we value. If in the future we value our well-being, and if we value our planet, we believe that the economy will actually follow.